Deism. It used to be a popular option among intellectuals during the 17th century, 18th century, and the very end of the 19th century. But when they started to establish their own state religion of deism, Thomas Paine proposed a similar concept in the United States, but never went anywhere. The closest we could get is to American civic religion, based on ceremonial deism, which I will put links in the description by the YouTube channel Religion for Breakfast. And there's never been a history of state pantheism, although you can argue that Mahayana Buddhism would be an example of that being the case because they believe everything is Buddha nature and using the concept of God as basically a pantheist statement. But regardless, I always mention examples of religions that subscribe to pantheism, deism, pantheism, and panentheism, and polytheism. And I put literally in my book, The Failures of Religion and Politics. But was established and was declined into the French Revolution. Why was that? Why was it on the decline? Because unlike the state atheism of the French Revolution, or the cult of reason, which was a bottom-up movement, a popular movement, surprisingly, but it was Robespierre who actually persecuted the atheists. He started to establish a cult of the supreme being. Although it was popular at first, it suffered a fate that led to the decline. And I will show you the expression why, based on the Cambridge History of Atheism, a two-volume set. Religion under the Directory, the Decatari Code, and Theophilanthropy. Before the Theomordian Convention and the Directory victorious pursued the construction of a civic religious celebration, the great events of the French Revolution. These celebrations share many features of the project put forth by Robespierre on May 7, 1794, with his famous report of the Supreme Being. The report laid out, among other dates, a plan for four comparative celebrations on 14th July, August 10, January 21st, and May 31st. 2 days before the end of the convention, Pierre Davon, a moderate legislator jailed during the terror, presented a report on public education in which he proposed several national festivals. The Directory followed suit, adding a series of laws on the of novice Nivose 23rd year 4 and Tentamitor year 4 that configured Robespierre's proposal into a system of 5 festivals: the 14th of July, August 10, if the one with the Maria, which is the birth of the Republic, and January 21st, the death of Louis XVI, and a new one, an advent of the Norwegian to replace 31st of May. Despite a few modifications, the ideas remained the same: celebration of the revolution in purely civic festivities, so as to make patriotism, as Tano put it, the one called account to all Frenchmen. In addition, a decree of the 13th Germinal Year 4 reaffirmed the use of the Republican calendar in all administrative matters, enforced it the Decadi as the day off work, and reinvigorated the Decatur Code. These measures were part of the arsenal of repression against both the legitimate and constitutional Catholic churches after the coup of Fructiter of September 4, 1797, which the Jacobin left returned to power. A new pledge of hatred of monarchy was demanded of every public servant, and the priests who refused to comply were again arrested and deported. It comes as no surprise that these public festivals imposed from above were unsuccessful. The lower classes, having been excluded from participation in politics after the Directory reinstatement of the poll tax, did not feel they had much to celebrate. The cult of Theophilanthropy suffered the same fate if it did benefit from certain success they estimate, until the consummate made it illegal. On September 18, 1794, the convention took stock of the result of its policy of religious terror. Much damage had been inflicted on the constitutional church by the fact that 5,000 priests had married and approximately 20,000 had been forced to abandon the priesthood. The republic, therefore, would no longer recognize any religion, a sort of religious freedom subsequently took hold still under the watchful eye of the government. Under the Directorate, there was a proliferation of religious practice alongside the traditional and constitutional Catholicism, resulting in a cacophony of religious voices. Among more serious attempts, Theophilanthropy stands out. It was started in Paris in December 1796 by Jean-Baptiste Chateaubriand and Parisian bookseller, with help from Valentin Hall, who was known at the time for his work on the behalf of the blind. It was deist and moralizing. It is the theology simplified. Its only tenet is the existence of God and the immortality of the soul. Its ritual very similar to those of the Catholic Church, but without priests. It was attractive enough to draw a diverse group of people disappointed by the constitutional church of anti-clerical activists and even some die-hard atheists such as Sylvia Marechal. Theophilanthropy benefited from the support of Louis Marie de la Riviere Lebels, were the directors. In spring of 1797, especially after the coup of Fructidor, he tried to establish it as the official religion of the regime together with the civic code. Theophilanthropy met with a certain success among the Enlightenment bourgeois, and in some departments, Bonaparte put an end to the experiment when he signed Control in 1801 as part of his policy as establishing control over the Catholic Church. On the other hand, there was a real popular euphemism of the time of the Republic Festival honoring the heroes who had died for France after the death of General Joubert and General Hoche. There were magnificent commemorative ceremonies throughout France of October 20, 1797 and October 1, 1798, foreshadowing the future code of the army and its leader of the consultant of the empire. So we start with the cult of the Supreme Being, which ended with the death of Robespierre, then the philanthropy, which barely died any deal, and then the cult of the military that gave birth to modern French patriotism and nationalism. The patriotic cult of the Croissant and the Empire. The diminishing popularity of the Republican Festival at the end of the Directorate resulted in a law enacted on December 24, 1799, reducing the number of festivals to two. 14th of July, the day freedom was sworn, and the anniversary of the founding republic. By then, if the Côte de Qatar had collapsed entirely. The true Republican Festival were themselves celebrated less and less in Paris, as well as in provinces when the empire was proclaimed when they disappeared. Still, Napoleon was anxious to preserve the appearance of republican legitimacy, even as it was established as a dynastic form of government. A difficult balancing act was the attempt to coronation. Its organization was federated. Each department sent a delegation at a time when a large majority of Frenchmen were still favorable to the revolution. The goal was to echo the Festival of the Federation of July 14, 1790, involved in the population as a whole in the coronation, turning it into a symbol of national unity around or behind the emperor. Memories of the Republic, however, were definitely put to rest with the Minister for Religious Affairs, but tales on February 9, 1806 decreed Christian celebration in honor of Napoleon. Saint Napoleon was to be celebrated on 15th of August, coupled together with devotion to Mary, which is kind of funny. They declared Napoleon a saint, the Catholics, even though Napoleon was atheist or a deist. We still don't know. It's either one of the two, and also to be celebrated with the anniversary of the coronation together with the victory of Austerlitz, one of the first Sunday of December. The gradual disappearance of the Republican festival and the establishment of the Court of Napoleon still left room for the glorification of the army as a symbol of the nation. As a whole effective full conscription, this authority of no patriotic order and equal to the heyday of La Patria de Danger under the Convention. The glorification of the army, and therefore of its commander, was sustained by an effective propaganda. The Boletín de la Grande Arme, even more effectively by the series of celebrations in Paris on November 1807 in honor of the Imperial Guard, and in 1808 for the other elements of the army as they marching through France on their way to Spain. The celebration of the Guard took place in Paris on 25 to 28 of November. Soldiers parade under the impressive triumphant arc, where there were hot air balloons above, and acrobats, golden laurels were awarded to the eagles of the Guards regiment. In the years between the Consulate and the 1848 Revolution, religion remained an important preoccupation, and there were again attempts to create new creeds. There were two great figures, Saint Simon and his assistant Auguste Comte, only the latter created a truly atheist doctrine, the religion of humanity, which didn't last long. In Atheism and Revolution, should one understand the various atheist philosophy that had impacted on France from Revolution of 1789 to 1848? On the one hand, Saint-Simonism and positivism clearly arose from the wish to create a new social order that would replace the ancient regime at the same time avoid revolutionary unrest. But the code of reason of year two and the subsequent de-Christianization remain a matter of controversy among historians, both in terms of their geographic expansion and their depth. Michel Bovelle, one of the forerunners of the study of year two and de-Christianization, provided a useful summary of the main interpretation of these events in a book first published in 1988 by Bovelle in the 1991 updated edition. How could we evaluate this episode? A tragic incident, the folly of a day which left intact the real depth of fate of the masses who bowed their heads under the storm? Or rather, on the other side of the coin, the great interruption in religious history, at least in French religious history, which separate a state of Christianity characterized by inhumanity of practice from one in which the participation of the laity caused the appearance of the gradual advancement in dissatisfaction, lasting from the 19th century right up to the present day. Unless a third hypothesis, this brutal de-Christianization suddenly flaring up seemed brought to light the true state of its differences, which already become doubtless the result of philosophical propaganda during the Enlightenment. The fall of Voltaire, the fall of Rousseau. For Voltaire, this hypothesis is the correct one. According to him, the long history of religious belief, the episode you choose seems like a paroxysmal moment of a crisis, which in this way was just as profound as that of the Reformation. Yeshua should be understood as bringing to the surface of a long process of de-Christianization that can be traced from the middle of the 18th century on. Voltaire support his interpretation with a summary of the extensive research he conducted of the people's changing attitude to religion as evidence in provincial wills. His findings were corroborated by Pierre Chaunu for Paris, beginning in the 1750s as early as 1720s in Paris. Wills no longer include the formulaic expression of diversion or request for conceptual masses that used to be the norm. The secularization of will was accompanied by a decline in Baroque funeral processions. The casket was no longer followed by a procession of penitents or other representatives from the clergy. However, Fauvet's interpretation is now generally considered outdated. His historiography today had charted the negative impact of the Enlightenment of the Catholic Church and religious practice in France has been greatly overestimated. The Church, on the contrary, fully participated in the contemporary philosophical debate inside the framework of Christian Enlightenment. These historians consider the decline in public manifestation of faith as a part of an evolution of religious practice toward more intimate, less public forms of worship, not as a rejection of the church. This explanation of the episode of de-Christianization concentrates mainly on the contingent events. Indeed, the Catholic Church was to enjoy a revival in the 19th century, both in France and the rest of Europe. The English historian John McManus agreed that the old Christian order, prey to the increased secularization of society, was undermined during the 18th century. Still, he writes the cataclysm of the revolution was decisive. This cataclysm being an unforeseeable and unforeseen event. Another English historian, Gilles Aston, flightly stated that the break between revolution and Christianity, especially the Catholic Church, was essentially contingent, unintelligible, without reference to the specific events and vicissitudes of the revolution itself. French historian Bernard Guéron goes even further. According to him, at the start of year two, there was no predisposition on the part of the revolutionary authorities to attack Catholicism, let alone to wish to dismantle it. In the end, as the American historian Dale Van Clay notes, the current historiographical emphasis on consensus between Christianity and the Enlightenment does render the break between Christianity and the French Revolution yet more problematic. What this sort of study indicates is that at the time of the Revolution, a section of the elite was no doubt de-Christianized, if not atheist. So were some members of the popular classes in Paris and the Negri departments. These were the people who launched the Code of Reason and spread to the rest of the country in the fall of 1793. Should one therefore conclude that France at the time was no longer Christian or under de-Christianized? In my opinion, Michel Fauvet overestimated the extent of the de-Christianization of year two. The first measure taken against the ancient regime church certainly resulted from the influence of the radical enlightenment of the second half of the 18th century. You know, how else could one explain them otherwise, let's be honest. But the de-Christianization of the church was launched by only a small minority within a minority, the atheists. The people's outdated enthusiasm for the revolutionary cause of Virtue were an expression of support for the revolution and republic more than any rejection of the Catholic religion. The return to Catholic practice in the years that followed, the failure of the Catholic code, and the civic ceremonies of the Directory, as well as Theo philanthropy, and later of Saint Simonism and Comet atheism under the Empire. The Restoration and the 1848 Revolution all point essentially limit the scope of atheism at the beginning of the 19th century. However, 10 years of revolution did further, in some cases, hasten the secularization of society that started in the middle of the 18th century and declining number of ordinations and the resource shortages of priests, weakening participants in religious ceremonies. The church loss of influence on social norms had already underway before the revolution. Continued today, that sense, the code of reason of the year two does signal distancing, even separation from the church, is dogma, is discipline on the part of the segment of society. This separation went hand in hand with the propagation of republic values founded on secular and patriotic principles that still endure today in France. And to understand, after the republic failed and turned into a empire, deism while decline basically never recovered since then. And what's even less popular was pantheism. It was never popular to begin with, although there are multiple religions that did subscribe to pantheism, like Mahayana Buddhism is one example, right? Like I said, I will link a scripture in my book where I mentioned some examples of theism and pantheism and certain religion where they subscribe to that version of theism. Even then, pantheism was less popular than deism. Like I said, at least closer to atheism than to deism. As they and it didn't become popular again until the 1960s by postmodernist philosophers like Louis Althusser and Gilles Deleuze and Antonio Negri, who started this, lack for the better words, the most extreme version of pantheism, where you're just one step away from atheism. This Marxist, Spinozist, materialist pantheism, which I would really recommend teaching this version of pantheism, which again pushing the logic of theism to its extreme endpoint without going straight to atheism. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you everybody who watched the video. Again, I recommend this pantheism and their argument. Well, they don't have much of an argument why their version of theism is true besides the awe and wonder argument. And scientific pantheism is, there's no difference between atheism and pantheism, where they use science to understand the world, and for them, like at the odd and wonder argument, it's like this is proof of God's existence, the natural world from a scientific point of view, which natural theology already did that, just with the approach of monotheism instead. So like not much of a difference when you think about it, especially from a historical point of view. But yeah, thank you everybody who watched the video. Like, subscribe, share. I hope to see you guys next time.